Well, the former U.S. ambassador to Canada and his wife have written a book about their time in Canada and their concerns about threats to the Canada-U.S. relationship, and in fact the threats around the world in the clash between populist and nationalist agendas. The book is called The Art of Diplomacy, Strengthening the Canada-U.S. Relationship in Times of Uncertainty. The authors are former Ambassador Bruce Heyman and his partner Vicki. The Heymans represented the U.S. and Canada for 3 years during the Obama administration until the election of President Trump. The book chronicles their travels across Canada and the conclusions they've reached about the importance of diplomacy, especially these days with a president in the White House that has his own ideas of diplomacy. Bruce and Vicki Heyman are with me now. It's good to see you both.
Good to see you.
Welcome back to Ottawa.
Great to be back in town.
And thanks for coming
from home.
Yeah, thanks for coming in to speak with me. Let's start at the beginning. Why did you want to write this book?
We wanted to write this book because I think it tells a story that both Americans and Canadians will want to hear. From a Canadian perspective, they get to have a front row seat as to how the U.S. ambassador and his partner traveled the country, met people, but our experiences with everybody from prime ministers to fishermen to Supreme Court justices to artists, and what we see Canada like through our eyes. For Americans, I think it's a great opportunity to appreciate how important the U.S.-Canada relationship is at a time of real uncertainty, and that's why the title is such, that the president has threatened that relationship multiple times over the last 2 years, and we want to emphasize for Americans, there's no better relationship in the world, no better friend that we have than with Canada, and that's why we wanted to memorialize this.
Let's get into that in a moment, but the approach you took is a little different. So it's co-written effectively. You each take turns in different chapters. And Vicki, why is that approach important?
It's really important because we approach this role and we approach our life as a partnership. We came to work for President Obama and become part of the Obama family in 2006, over a decade ago, and we did it as a team. We worked in our community as a team. We met many years ago in business school and worked as a team, and that's how we approached our job. So we both used our own voices, our own interests, our passions to lead here, and we had similar experiences, but we also had different experiences through different lenses. I got involved very deeply in culture and building community. Bruce got, as the ambassador would, very involved in the political challenges of the day and commerce. And so I think through our combined voices, you're seeing different prisms, different sides into this extraordinary country.
I thought it was kind of interesting, and why co-writing is, I found it kind of interesting because you talk about in the story how when it came time, when the nomination of either one of you was a possibility for ambassador, it kind of ended up being decided Bruce would be the one whose name was put forward for the nomination, but you were both being considered. It could have been either one of you.
It could have, and I think, as I mentioned, we were both very involved in 2008 in the election and the campaign, and went back to our day jobs, and then I was asked to be the finance co-chair for the state of Illinois and be a senior leader in the campaign, and Bruce took a senior leader in 12. Yeah, right. 4 years later, and Bruce took a senior leadership as an economic advisor to the president. So we both were very, very engaged, but we have a very open and symbiotic relationship. We know where our strengths are, we know what our passions are, and for me, I'm a very entrepreneurial and creative person, and I knew that I love engaging in storytelling and art and building community, and that was a perfect spot for me to engage in that here, kind of unrestricted by the State Department and the structures of that.
Bruce, you write in the book that Donald Trump is systematically poisoning the U.S.-Canada relationship and that the relationship is in peril. Trust and honesty are being eroded through lies and intimidation. If that's what's happening, how can diplomacy possibly rescue that relationship?
Well, diplomacy has to rescue the relationship. So let's talk about the difference in how we see diplomacy and how Donald Trump sees his interactions internationally. Donald Trump looks through a lens of what he says make America first, but it is in a binary view. I win, you lose. It's kind of his art of the deal. Relationships also seem to be incredibly disposable for him. Like, if you don't do this, then I'm just going to hurt you or do things to you.
My way or the highway.
My way or the highway. the way we see it, and the point of the book, is through diplomacy, you can find win-win solutions. And while you may disagree with what I'm saying, we don't have to be disagreeable, and we need to find paths to mutual outcomes that are good.
Tell me how this is different. I mean, it's not unusual. Canadians, we're very familiar with our ongoing relationship with the United States.
Sure.
And it's not unusual to have a Republican in the White House and a Liberal at 24 Sussex here in Ottawa, and maybe the relationship's a little bit chilly. And if it's a Democrat in the White House and a Conservative at 24 Sussex, we've seen that. How's this different?
This is different because he's attacking the Canada relationship at its core. The difference between Republicans and Democrats, or Conservatives and Liberals, is they may have different philosophies in terms of how to approach governing. But it doesn't ever come to the point where we're threatening the U.S.-Canada relationship. That even when we have those differences, that we always value our ally, our partnership at the core. What Donald Trump is doing is he's threatening Canada at the core. If you don't give this to me, I'm going to threaten your auto industry. I'm going to call names directly at your prime minister and your foreign minister, or my direct team is going to do that. I'm going to put steel and aluminum tariffs on you till you scream and hurt so that I can get you to give me quotas. I'm going to sit down and do things to you to get outcomes to win for him. But I think in the end of the day, it's a losing proposition for America, and it's a losing proposition for our position in the world.
Okay, so have we got what we've got until Donald Trump is no longer in the White House? And I'm not sure who might replace him, whether he wins another term or not. But the question becomes, I mean, you've identified a lot of the concerns people have with Donald Trump, but how do you deal with it?
Well, we have a bit of a rudder on it now that in 2018 the House is majority Democratic, so there's a little bit of a lever on that. I think that we're all looking toward 2020, and you see some extraordinary people that are raising their hands to run on the Democratic side, and also not only for president but in all areas of government. So,
but there's one other way. And that is the point of why we're here today.
Yeah, that's true.
The citizen ambassador is more important now than ever before.
Yes.
So all of us as citizens across the border, we all get along great. Businesses get along great. It's the problem is in the White House. So we can't just wait around.
You believe he's
for it.
living in a different reality than life on the ground for most of our citizens of both of our countries.
Not only citizens of both of our countries, but all of our allies around the world. And I think a different reality for most of America. But look, he is the president, and we're going to have to live with that at least through the, this next election, and potentially even longer. So I think that's why we are speaking up now, because we want to take the role of citizens and speak up for the importance of this relationship.
We feel that this book is a call to action for others to join us as citizen ambassadors. You don't have to be an ambassador to be an ambassador for your community, to be an ambassador for your country, to be an ambassador to the issues and the values that you hold dear. And so what we're saying is that we do have power, we should use it. We have the power to engage politically, we have the power at the ballot box, we have our communities, we have our communities that we can talk to and engage to join us. So, we kind of end the book with, yes we can, yes we will continue the work. And that work is so important over the next year and going forward.
But to be clear, you end the book with the Heyman honey cake recipe.
Well, that's true.
Yes.
And that is really good.
If that doesn't bring people together, I mean, what will? But let me ask you a couple of quick things to finish here. Sure. How did your time in Canada change the way that you make decisions today?
So for me, I pause more, I listen more, and I take in an alternative perspective. That I may have come here and said, I see the world through a certain lens, but I now realize that looking through that same lens, other people may see the world differently. And you need to sit down and take that into consideration to develop your opinions. Canadians look at the world different than Americans, and I learned a lot from Canadians as to how to look at the world from a different place. The second thing, which I think is equally important, that if somebody has an issue and you don't think it's that significant, you should never underestimate the importance of it, because it's important to someone else. And so that was a path that I learned, and in some cases I learned it the hard way. But, I try not to make the mistakes twice.
There's some of those mistakes in the book worth reading.
I think for me, experiencing the extraordinary beauty of this land and really being in touch with nature and seeing how fragile it is and how, how important we are in our environment, and traveling all across your extraordinary country, from coast to coast to coast, the Arctic, the mountains, the oceans, and learning to and listening to the Canadian people. They were our teachers, whether they were fishermen in the sea with disappearing starfish, or they were Indigenous elders who talked about the stewardship of the land and water, and the ancient and traditional wisdoms of the Indigenous people, teaching us about their traditions and about their value for the land. And I came away with such a closeness to this land and this country, and I carry that with me, and I try to share it wherever I go, and that really changed.
Well, you've shared some of it again with us today,
Yeah,
both of you.
Thank you.
Vicki Heyman, Bruce Heyman, good to see you again. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for this
Thank you
time.
so much.